just that we obviously have Derek Temple with us today, and we'll let Derek give us some of his insights into the game. Derek, welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Thank you very much.
Let's carry on and right.
Okay, so
Right, my full name is Derek William Temple, and my date of birth is 13th of the 11th, 38. Now, if you work that out, it makes me, I'm just coming up to 70, actually.
and you're born in Liverpool? Or?
Yes, apparently, my mother tells me I was born in Mill Road Hospital in 38. Not long afterwards, I think the Germans bombed it, so I think they got the timing wrong. I don't know whether they were after me or not.
Well, thankfully, in 1966 we were gratefully missed.
Yeah.
And what did your mother and father do? What were they?
My dad was a seaman for a long time. He was in the Merchant Navy and convoys in the war. And my mother was, as people were then, she was a housewife, you know, which is a very important job, of course. Then my dad came out the Navy and he worked for Merseyside Passenger Transport. I think he was a labourer, fitter's labourer at Edge Lane tram sheds.
And where did you live in Liverpool when you...
Dovecot. Dovecot, most people know, is just on the border with Huyton, you know, and there's an awful lot of footballers come from the Huyton area. And don't know too many who come from Dovecot, but you could say it's virtually the same area.
And did you... Which was your schools? Which were your primary schools and your secondary schools?
Winstone Road Primary, Stonefield Road where I lived, junior, and then Grant Road Secondary Modern.
And did you play for the school teams?
Yes, only in the seniors, the Secondary Modern. And they used to have to borrow a pair of football boots because we were, you know, I was one of six and one wage coming into the family, so times were hard. And I got my first pair of football boots when I was 14 years old, and my elder brother bought me those.
And they were your own. They were your own boots that you used. You used them quite regularly, I suppose.
Yes, well, I got into Liverpool schoolboys, and of course I had these boots to play in. Which McGregor's, I think they were called.
Right. Well, in those days, of course, Liverpool schoolboys was the training ground or proving ground for a lot of players coming through. Who else was in that team with you in those days? That anybody still playing? Or,
no.
Sorry, not, but you know.
I know what you mean. No. There was one other player that made it. A fellow named Len Ashcroft. Len Ashurst. Played for Sunderland and also managed Sunderland.
That's right. I remember Len Ashurst. Yes.
But there were some very good players. Of course, we won everything that was going at the time. You know, it was a very good side.
So, what position did you play? Were you
centre forward? Centre forward. Oh yeah, I was a goal scorer. I held the record for. I don't know whether it's still a record. I don't think it is, but I scored for Liverpool schoolboys 44 goals in 18 games, which is takes some doing, of course. Nearly 3 a game, but that was 53-54 season, and they were good days. I enjoyed those days.
Was that when you first got noticed by the professional clubs? Was that the season you first got noticed?
Yeah, I would say that's right, Phil, because you know the I think it's more professional now in picking up players than it was then, but certainly I played, you see, for Liverpool schoolboys, Lancashire schoolboys and England schoolboys, which of course you're in the shop window, aren't you, with England schoolboys. And I know that at the time, I think Manchester United, Wolves, Liverpool and Everton wanted to sign me from being a schoolboy, but a different signing as it is now. You know, I mean, there's academies. There were no academies then. If you wanted to, you could sign and go on the ground staff, which I did actually in the end for Everton.
Why particularly Everton? What was the?
I don't know really. It's a good question because I couldn't say I had an affiliation to either Liverpool or Everton because all I wanted to do was play football. No, just play football, Jerry. You know, I just wanted. Every evening I was out, if it were winter, you know, under street light playing, and it just consumed me the interest of football. And it was only with playing with an old tennis ball, you know, with all the it was black because all the colour had gone out of it, and you know, with the playing on concrete. Right. And it was great, and then on the Sunday sometimes we'd get a casey, as they called it then, you know, the case ball, the old case ball with the lace, and the gang of us would go up on what they call the top field, and we'd have a kick around. We'd sometimes climb over the school fence and go and play on the school field. Yeah, good days.
So, describe them. The actual day Everton came for you, if you like, the actual. Can you remember, you know, the knock on the door, or was it the telephone going, or what?
No, it was. I think Liverpool game. Don Welsh was the manager at Liverpool, and very, very pleasant man. But I don't know what it was. Funny thing is, Liverpool offered me £6 a week, which was a fortune in those days, to go on their ground staff. And Everton came along and offered me £3 a week. And money mustn't have motivated me. It never has really, and you know, now it never will. But for some reason I signed for Everton. So, you know, I mean, the way I look at it is, they say once, you know, Evertonians are born, so I must have been born an Evertonian.
What age were you then, Derek?
15.
You were 15.
Yes.
And what was when you came to 15? What was your sort of duties then? Were you playing in the youth sort of?
We had Everton had they had about 6 junior teams, I think, at the time, Jerry. It was they had like a youth team, a Colts. It wasn't a youth team. It was Colts. They had how did it work out? A D team, C team, D team, C, B, A, reserves, first team. You know, so
right, sure.
And then you normally progressed right through those, which I did. You know, I mean, sometimes you could go through 1 or 2 in a season if you were making good progress, and that's what happened.
So, did you feel in that early days? Did you feel happy with that, or were there anybody tapping you up to move on, or were you convinced that you were going to stay at Everton? And
yeah, no, there was none of this tapping up then. I think that's a fairly, well, you say recent, really, certainly over the last 20 years I think it's come in, but it certainly didn't happen then. I was quite happy with my lot. I was on Everton's ground staff, used to brush the stands and help on the pitch sometimes, and train Tuesday and Thursday nights. Then you know, you're hoping as you're getting closer to 17 that you're going to be signed professional, which was the age, of course, for signing. And I did sign. It was a little bit after I was 17, a few months after, but I did sign, and I made my debut in 1957, March 1957, the end of that season. Yeah.
And signing, I mean, there weren't the agents then. Who was with you when you were signing the contract? It was just yourself and...
Yeah, well, that was it. Well, yeah, no agents. You were told what you were going to get, and you signed.
No negotiation. Just
no. But of course it was fixed then. You know, I mean, it wasn't open. The FA or the Football League said, this is what you're allowed to pay players. And of course it was on a sliding scale. There was a maximum wage, but certainly the clubs could pay you below the maximum, which they very often did, of course. And I think as you got on, you would come up to the maximum. You know, if you got into the first team, well, you'd be on maximum wages.
And the manager at the time, then, when you were there, was?
Well, when I was a lad, it was Cliff Britton, and then he left, and I think
Johnny Carey?
Yeah, but first of all, they had for a while they had an interim period where they had like a technical officer, Harold Pickering. Don't know whether you remember him, Jerry. What was he called? Like liaison officer or something.
Like a players' liaison officer.
Yeah, fancy title, but he was working for the club. But certainly wasn't a manager. And then we got Ian Buchan from. He was a lecturer at Loughborough College. Very nice chap, Ian. And he gave me my debut, you know, at Everton. Very nice man, but unfortunately he was killed in a car crash up at Scotch Corner in Yorkshire.
Nice.
So, I mean, you're saying you were on the ground staff and training on a Tuesday and Thursday, I think you said, didn't you? Was that so? Did you go home? And
yes.
And did you have another job? Did you, a sort of, a paper round or?
No, I had a paper round when I was 14, and that was around the Barring Park area, and the chap there whose business it was, George Henry Lee, his name was, funnily enough. It's a funny name, that, because it's famous, isn't it? Famous name. Yeah, and he said to me, you're coming up to here, you're missing nights, and I'm having to scratch. He said, you're playing football too much. So he said, it's either football or the papers. I said, well, it's going to be football. So I packed up the paper round. And that was it then. Went into the football. But still only a kid, of course, but went on the ground staff at Everton. I was supposed to go into a business of printing, and I went down to a place in Liverpool round Old Hall Street, I think it was, and I went in this place, and the chap put me off, quite honestly, because he said, it was like down steps in a cellar with printing presses pounding away, and I thought, dear me, so, I thought I wouldn't like to be in this all day. And he said, well, that's what you'd be doing. And anyway, I said, oh, it's not for me then. And so I stayed on Everton ground staff brushing the stands, but I had the fresh air, of course.
So when you made your debut 57, I mean, the likes of Dave Hickson was still in the team, was he?
Yes, yeah.
So were you playing alongside him?
Well, no, what happened, I think memory sometimes plays tricks on you, and I think David left. Because I was still a centre forward, and I made my debut against Newcastle as a centre forward, and I wouldn't have been playing centre forward if David had still been there. I think he came back, and I played inside forward to Dave when he did come back. But I think David moved on then. I think he went. Did he go to Aston Villa or Huddersfield?
He played for both, didn't he?
I think he went to Aston Villa first. Huddersfield, then he ended up at Liverpool, and then he came back to Everton.
That's right.
Which, of course, Dave was a big Evertonian, and he never really wanted to leave Everton. But anyway, he came back, and we had quite a good partnership, Dave and I. For a short while, because I went in did my national service not long after that.
So when were you told about making your debut? I mean, how did that happen?
Well, it was Ian Buchan, and he said. I think, what age would it be? March 57.
16, 17? No, 19.
No,
19.
no, I'd be 18. I was 18, I think. Just turned 18.
That's right.
And I played in the first team, and I did okay. And Ian Buchan said, "You'll play for England one day," and he was right. I did, but only the one cap. But I did play for England, and it was against Newcastle. We my debut, and it was very interesting because I always remember because I got carried off. Came back on, of course, but it was those days. Football was more of a physical game in that you could tackle from behind, and they certainly did. These fellas, they were different bills then. Defenders, they're more these days. They're more like athletes, but those days they were. How can I put it? They heavier and could kick harder probably.
So did they have to build you up? Did they have to build your physique up, Everton?
No, well, I mean, what happened with the hurly-burly of a centre-forward, they decided, and the buffeting centre-forward to get, they decided that I wasn't big enough, so they started moving me inside forward. Unfortunately, I was versatile to be able to play inside forward, centre-forward, inside forward, or on the wing, left or right, because I'm right-footed predominantly, but I could kick with my left foot as well, and so I could play on left or right and the side of the wings, and that's what happened in the end. I stopped playing centre forward and reverted through Harry Catterick, that was, into a winger.
And when you first made your debut, who was in the side then that you can remember very happily as, a good colleague and a good player played with you? Was there anybody that used to stand out?
I can't remember. I can't remember the team at all, Jerry. But there was certainly. I don't think he was in the side that day when I made my debut. I'm not sure, but Mick Megan was a good friend, good footballer, Mick.
Irish midfield player.
Yeah, very good. Full back as well, and he was a great footballer, was Mick. Kenny Ray, I think, was playing. Tommy Jones, of course. Tommy Jones. Tony McNamara played the same side as Tony. I think Tony played when I made my debut. Tommy Jones did. Not sure about the others, but Kenny Ray or Jimmy Tansey. Jimmy was
so fullback.
Yeah, he's good, and Jimmy. But I can't remember. I think certainly Brian Harris and our careers followed a similar pattern. We sort of made our debuts around about the same time. Brian was just a couple of years older than me, but his national service was deferred because he had a trade. I think he was an electrician, was Brian. We never went back to it, but he could be deferred, and so he was in the army at the same time as me, but he was older, a couple of years older with it being deferred.
What sort of contract were you when you first came? What contract were you offered? I mean, how long ago? Was it a 12-month contract or?
Usually 12 months, Jerry. Yeah. And I read recently Stuart Imlach's son, Gary, I think his name is, read his book about his dad, and brings back memories, these things, because he was right in that they talk about football slaves, and you were basically, you were a slave because the clubs had full hold on you. They could say whether you what your livelihood was, really, in that they retained your registration no matter what, and that was wrong. And of course it was a great thing when freedom of contract came about, and the maximum wage was abolished, because the clubs must have, I don't know where the money went, but clubs must have been making a lot of money, in those days.
Did you have some of the players had a summer job in those days? Did you have a summer job?
I didn't. I know some did. that, you know, I mean, that was up to the individual. I never did have a summer job. I just, because I had a young boy, mind you, that was much later, 64 my first son was born, and then 68 my second son. But no, I don't know, for whatever reason, I never took up a job in the summer.
And what did the training, what was the training like in those days? What did that consist of in you know, your early part of the career, in the sort of late 50s? What was the sort of training consist of?
Well, it was not as scientific as it is now, or as it became later. It was basically physical, running, a lot of running, not a lot of ball work, and I always remember that when Ian Buchan, which I had a long time professional, Ian Buchan was manager. He was the first chap, because he was a physical education lecturer from Loughborough. He was the first, we were the first club to introduce circuit training and weights. And in Gladys Street, up at the far corner, they had a gym built, and that was for mats with weights and circuit training, you know, going round. And we were probably the fittest team in the league at that time, and we were top of the table up till Christmas. And then things started to go wrong, a few injuries and so on, and you know, we ended up mid-table, but we were fit at that time. I must say that, but other teams soon caught up, you know.
Who were the characters? I mean, you remember you mentioned the likes of Tony McNamara, and he's still a character to even now.
Yes.
Was he a character in those days?
Oh yeah, Tony. You know, I mean, we were all in the same boat. You know, we were all professionals then, and so it was a matter of doing your best and keeping yourself. You see, the thing was, as the season got on, everybody used to worry that at the end of the season you wouldn't be retained, because there was no guarantee of employment anywhere else. And although the clubs, you see, this is what I was saying before, the clubs had you, that they could sign you or they could discard you. And they would only discard you if they thought you were no good to them. But if they thought you were good to them, it didn't mean you were going to get a good deal off them. You know, I mean,
they just retain you,
and invariably on the same money or a very slight rise. You know, very, very little.
And it was take it or leave it. You had no.
Oh yeah, no. And if you didn't sign, they you know, you'd play in the reserves and your money would drop.
And it didn't matter who you were, what you were, or how well you played in?
No. There was a lot of, you know, if you dig the records out, I bet there was a lot of disputes going on, but in the end the club would win, because it was all about the players' livelihood, and people had mortgages, or there were a lot of clubhouses then, of course. That was another thing. The club had you, you'd be paying rent to the club, and you know, you still had to find that rent, so you know, it was.
So where was your? Where did they put you? You had a clubhouse?
No, I didn't. No, they didn't give me a clubhouse. You see, again, for what it is, the system was based on, if they signed a player from another club, they'd want to keep him happy, if you like, and so you get a clubhouse, and it was a big part of the deal. They'd say, right, they'd show him a house and say, there's your clubhouse. I mean, as time went on, the houses improved. But when I got married, I went to Johnny Carey, Harry Catrick, I'm not sure. No, Harry Catrick, and I said, could I have a clubhouse? Just trying to think who it was. Was it Harry Catrick or? I think it might have been Johnny Carey. But anyway, whoever it was, they said, no, we're not doing that, you know, it's only certain players get clubhouses, so
So basically, because you're a Scouser,
local. That was it. Yeah.
You got to shrug your shoulders.
Well, you know, these things happen in life, don't they? You know, worse things happen at sea, as my dad used to say.
You mentioned before to us, Derek, about Brian being exempt from the army because of his job.
Yeah.
I know you were telling me a couple of times before you actually did army.
Oh, I did national service.
You played in the army, didn't you?
I did, yes. And of course, when national service, of course, was compulsory. And when I got my papers, I came into the club, and I said, look, they're asking me to do national service. Well, the club weren't very happy because I was in the first team. I was only a youngster, but I was in the first team. And they said, oh, no, we don't want you going in the army. It would, take years off your career, which it would, 2 years. So they said, it was Ian Buchan. He said to Harry Cook, old Harry, get some pads and put them on his feet. And he said to me, tell them you're flat-footed, go down with these pads on and tell them you're flat-footed. So I put these pads on and go down, medical in Liverpool somewhere. They said, what are those pads? I said, oh, I'm flat-footed. They said, you're a professional footballer, aren't you? I said, I am. And you're flat-footed? So I said, well, yeah. So he said, oh, it's the first one we've come across. Then he did a couple of checks, take the pads off. Next thing, A1, you're in, and you'll be assigned such that. Anyway, go outside into the corridor, and there's about 4 or 5 ex-army officers with their big Crombie coats on. And this chap, he was an ex-major, an older chap, and he said to me, Temple. I said, yes. He said, you're a footballer. I said, well, people say that, some people say that. So he said, well, join our regiment and you'll be able to play every week. He said, we're based at Harrington Barracks, Formby. Oh. So he said, you'll be at home every week. Home from home, you won't interfere with your career one iota. So I said, well, that's fair enough. Time for your rent. It was the King's Regiment, Liverpool King's Regiment. Anyway, 10 months later, I was in Kenya fighting the Mau Mau. So the moral of that story is, don't believe an ex-army officer. But I didn't actually fight the Mau Mau. I was just at the end of them. Then they chased them up into the Aberdare Mountains, and but I had a spell in Kenya, which was very interesting. That was national service, of course.
I take it the club actually, like I know they did for people not in the sports field and national services on, their job was kept open because it was beyond their control.
Well, they had to pay you a retainer, Jerry. You were paid a retainer by the club of £3 a week. Your army pay was about 30 bob, £1.50. So I was better off than a lot of people. But that was it. I did come home a few weekends, but I was playing in the reserves, I was in the first team originally, but funny thing, we played a game here, I think it was 1958, against Blackburn in the Cup, and we lost 2-1. I was in the army, but that day, it was a night game, I always remember it. They had me on an assault course at Formby, and I went up this ramp and I had to jump over a ditch, and as I jumped I landed on my ankle and ligaments went, and of course my ankle came, and I played that night, but they wrapped it up and put fiery jack on or something. Oh, my ankle was burning, but I could hardly run. It was thick mud at Goodison, and I think we lost to Blackburn 2-1. That'll be in the records, that cup game. So the army in that respect didn't do me a lot of favours, and I came back from Kenya, and that was where we were based was 7,000 feet above sea level, so of course your fitness playing football was a different pace altogether, and it took me a while to adapt when I came back to get really fit and get back into my stride again.
I think in your playing career you never really got into a lot of trouble, did you, really? But I think you were saying that once in the army you had a bit of a time.
Oh well,
because they used to try and take it out of you.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that because you know Joe Parkinson. So
Yes.
it was with Joe the other week, and Joe was never sent off in his career, you know, but I was, which is strange really when you think of me, forward, wouldn't hurt to fly. Big Joe going round. He was one of the dogs of war.
Yes.
Very
Yes.
good player, but he was a big strong lad.
Very good player.
And no, I was sent off in Kenya. I was captain of the battalion team, and been out for the day, and I was driving this car. Which cut a long story short, it was a bit late. Got to the ground where the match was, and we were playing a local team, and the locals were the tribes people then around there were Kikuyu. There were Maasai further out, but mostly Kikuyu. Very very happy, jovial people, but they could kick you, you know, when they were playing football, and they played a lot of them played in the bare feet. It didn't make any difference; they'd still kick you, and it did hurt, you know. But this guy I was playing against, I was centre forward again. He was about 6'4", and he wasn't a bad player, but by every time I went up, his elbows were whacking the back of my head, in my ears, you know. And in the end, the referee was an old colonial, been over there years, and everything was for the natives, you know, and he gave me nothing. And in the end, I just lashed out to kick this fella up the backside, and this fella set me off. And I got marched. Later on, I got marched in front of the CO, and you know, left, right, hat off, and salute, and hat off. Anyway, I got confined to barracks. I forget now. Was it 2 or 3 months? I think, which didn't really make a lot of difference because you didn't go out that much there.
But did you still play though, when, you know?
No, I was banned.
You were banned from playing as well.
And I was captain of East Africa Command as well, because, you know, I was one of the few professional. Well, I think it was the only professional footballer over there at the time. So they make you captain. But yeah, it was a shame. One of those, I wasn't happy about it, but you know, just one of those things. I was probably a little bit built up with driving and rushing. But I mean, I must say, refereeing is not an easy job, but this referee didn't have a clue, quite honestly, you know. Get banned for saying that now.
Yes, exactly, yeah. I mean, talking about, you're saying about grounds, I mean, as a winger, when you look at, and you and I were talking about this not long ago, looking at the modern grounds today, the grass today, I mean, what was it like in the winter months when the grounds were very heavy as a winger? Because, you know, there wasn't a lot of grass, was there? No,
but where the grass was, the wingers would get the benefits of it, because you had that diamond of basically sand, because there was lots of sand thrown on the pitch to absorb the water. And so you'd have that diamond of sand, and then the corners were grass. And that's one of the big differences in football today. The pitches are superb. I mean, see them at the end of the season, there's nearly as much, well, basically there is much grass on as at the start. I don't think they're in as good a condition, but not far away from it, you know. But when we were playing, the pitches, the science was different, you know. So there is a big difference in that respect.
And I mean, you were talking about the case ball, and then you played with the slightly lighter ball. Was it a big difference? Did you notice a?
No, I mean, you probably, yeah. The old case ball, the leather ball, if it were wet, you know, that would just absorb water. They used to put dubbing on it, you know, I mean, like they did on your boots, but it would still take an awful lot of water in and become quite heavy. So you did notice when they started bringing balls out that were laceless, you know, with the valve that you pumped up, and they did have like a plastic coating on But they're not. I haven't kicked a modern ball, but I don't know. But they seem to be able to, no effort, to clip them 40 yards. You know, whereas you wouldn't have done a few years ago.
So I mean, when you see the likes of Ronaldo doing these step overs and all that, was it possible to do it with? I mean, could he have done it with a case ball? Would it be impossible, sort of thing?
No, I don't think so. I think a fella with his skill, you know, I mean, I think he doesn't matter tennis ball. I think he'd do it with, wouldn't he? You know, I mean, tremendous skill.
I think the difference is, though, I think, as you say, with the modern ball. They can still do it, but they can make it turn angles, they can make it swerve.
Yes.
Would the ball that you had, could you do it with that? Or?
No, I don't think so. It was pretty true, you know, in its flight. It was more power than guile in those days. I mean, the boots reflected that, Jerry, you know. I mean, the boots were heavier. The boots they play with now seem to be more like slippers, don't they? You know, I mean, but... that, I think, well, honestly, that's why a lot of these metatarsal injuries are coming from, because you can get one of these boots and bend it like that. Well, to my mind, there's no support. If that can bend, it means that your foot inside it can bend, you know. And that's where the metatarsal injuries come from. But the boots were different. They had to be heavier because the ball was heavier, you know, to strike it. But you did have a lot more protection around the ankles then.
Did you have to buy your own boots in those days, sort of?
No, early days, you'd go down to Jack Sharp's in Whitechapel, who was a director of the club, and you'd go down and have a fitting down there, you know, try some on, and then that was it. But you didn't. You only had one pair of like boots for match days, and then an old pair for training in.
So the millionaires were.
Well, they weren't. No, there weren't so much millionaires then, but it was a different kettle of fish entirely. In that the rubber boots, which were the old rubbers, they were all rubber. They were like little Wellingtons, if you like, you know, moulded soles with rubber and but high ankle, and you used to be given a pair of those, a loan of a pair of those, should I say. You never had your own. There were just so many sizes, and they would, on the day, if it was frosty or something, the pitch was hard, you'd be, I'll try those on. It's totally different.
Did you have an apprentice, by the way, when you're in the first team? I mean, you said you're on the. They didn't exactly have when you started. There wasn't exactly an apprenticeship as such. But as you went on, did you gain when you got into the first team? You got
but you didn't have your own. It was just a matter of there were boys like who were making the way then, who would be cleaning boots and that sort of thing, but they weren't designated to a particular player, you know what I mean.
And that would be the likes of, what, Joe Royal? Would
yes,
it be?
Joe, Alan Whittle, David Johnson, Roger Kenyon, lots of the lads, Terry Darricott.
There was quite a few that made it then, wasn't there, to the first team that went through that
system?
Well,
you know, I mean, the academy, if you like, then, or the youth system, was very, very good. But of course, it wasn't a matter then, was it, of going out and buying a ready-made player as it is now. You know, television never played a big part. You'd have match of the day, and that was it. There were no live matches. It was just the highlights in the evening, Saturday evening, grandstand, I think it was, wasn't it? Now that's all changed, of course. It's television has pumped so much money in that they dictate kick-off time. You know, today the kick-off time was amazing, but so television, but you know, Peter, you know, pay the piper, Peter. Play the tune, didn't he? So.
Now, I was going to ask you, I mean, 1963 Everton won the championship, but you were injured in that season, weren't you? Am I right thinking that?
62, 63, Phil. Yeah, that was the big freeze-up. It snowed in early January, and I don't think we played again till late March. Although we did play here because we had under-soil heating, but I don't think it was that efficient. I think we only played one game. Now, what happened that year, I had Bonfire Night, 1962, I had a cartilage out. At pre-season, I felt great. I was really, I thought, oh, I'm going to have a good season. And pre-season training, I went over on my ankle, stood on the ball as I ran down the wing at Belfield. And I went, the full back, Roy Parnell it was, who was marking me. And it was like a first team versus reserves, if you like. And I went down the left wing, and he came to cut out the cross, and I tried to stop it, stand on it, stop it, but as I stood on it, my ankle went over the ball, and of course I went forward and on my way, and I felt a crack. But I don't think it was broken because the X-rays didn't show a break, but I think the crack was my ligaments going. And my ankle came up like the size of an elephant, and anyway, got over that eventually. Had it put in plaster, got over that weeks and weeks later, and my knee started aching. Getting terrible pains in my knee, this left knee, the same as the knee, same knee as the ankle, the same leg. And they couldn't, the club was saying, "Oh, you're okay," and this. In the end, it came down, you're imagining it. Well, I don't think so. But anyway, they eventually took me into hospital and had my cartilage taken out, and they found the cartilage was torn. They were telling me that it wasn't, and that was Bonfire Night, 1962. Those days, when you had a cartilage out then, they cut you, about 3 or 4 inches to get the cartilage out. Now it's all microsurgery, and they don't invariably take it out, they repair it or take a little sliver off to repair. And that's great because you're back playing within a fortnight, and this microsurgery. But then you struggle for maybe 6 weeks and just to get training again. And that happened to me. And anyway, that season I only played 5 games, and we won the championship. I played one sort of earlier. We had a little break where we played one game. There was a big break, but we managed to get one game in, and I played in that. I think it was against Wolves here, Goodison. We beat them, and then I played the last 4 games, and we won the championship, but I didn't get a medal. No.
Yeah, you didn't play enough games to do for that. How did you feel about that at the time?
Well, I was disappointed, of course, yeah. I would have loved a championship medal. But I could say, it's a part of the team that helped to win it. But no, there's nothing to show for it. Yeah.
Did you need, how many games did you need? 13, 14?
I think maybe 12. I'm not sure, Phil. I have an idea, 12, maybe 14. 12, 14.
But so, as Jerry just said, you disappointed, but you were sort of professional about it, were you, or did you,
Well, there's nothing you could do. You're disappointed, you just get on with it. And it's gone. You have to look forward to next season.
Were you a good spectator? When you were watching them, or did you want to kick the ball?
Well, my wife says I still kick the ball now when I'm watching television, So, probably, I'm not a critical spectator, and I always watch. I see things that a lot of people don't see because I always watch after the ball's gone. A lot of people follow the ball. I always watch after the ball, and you see somebody kick somebody after the ball's gone and down. They say, "What happened there?" And I say, "Well, he's just kicked him." You can see. I'm not critical. I used to enjoy playing more than watching when that was the case. If you weren't selected and you had to watch, well, so be it. But you'd hope that your time would come again, and invariably it did. But now I find football has changed an awful lot. It's basically the same game. It's still a round ball and the same pitch, same markings, and the idea is to put the ball in the net. I think there's a lot of skill in the game now. I still maintain that footballers of years ago would still be able to play today. They would soon adjust to the pace, and get the same fitness level. But I must say there's certain things I do admire about the game today and other things I don't. But I think that would go for everybody.
I mean, you had that injury. I mean, did you ever play in a match where you were injured but you never told anyone to stay in the side, if you like?
Well, that's a good point, Phil, because you see, you would get. I've always maintained, since I finished playing football, that if you could play, and I think most ex-players would agree with me, that if you could play 30% of the season without any injuries, you'd be very, very lucky. Most of the time you had little niggles that you couldn't, you hadn't got over from the week before or the midweek game or something. But you played because you could get through. But you weren't actually 100%. You might be 80% fit, but not 100%. And of course, if you had a bad game, sometimes it could be down to that not being 100% fit. But it wasn't so much yourself. Sometimes the club would say, "Oh, we need you to play," and they'd put pressure on you to play. So
they give you an injection to play.
Well, that did happen. In the past. Yeah.
Well, you come in this. We're in the 60s now, and I suppose we're getting to a time of your career which is going to stick in your mind for a long, long time. And if you, to the left of your shoulder, there's a picture which you've no doubt seen when you came in, which is something you'll always remember. And I should imagine you've been asked on so many occasions, what was it like, how do you describe, and how thrilled and honoured you were to score that 1966 cup final, which is something you'll always remember, I would think. And what was the build up to the day like to that?
Well, we went to Selsdon Park in Croydon, big hotel there, right. I think it was right next door to Wentworth Golf Club. I wouldn't swear to that, but I think it was, because there was all you could hear there with the whack of golf clubs on, and I think it was Bernard Gallagher practicing. Wonderful sound, But anyway, that was part of the build-up. We went there, and we went down there on the Thursday, and of course nobody knew the team, but then when it was announced, of course, poor Fred Pickering lost out. But to be perfectly honest, I thought Fred was injured. Wouldn't have lasted the game. Wembley was known as a very, very strength-sapping pitch, and I think unfortunately Harry Catterick had to make the decision, and with hindsight, it was a wonderful decision, wasn't it? Enough for Fred, but to bring a lad in who scored 2 goals as a substitute for Fred, or if you like, there were no substitutes allowed, he was very, very lucky, Harry, in that he put a lad in there that did the job for us. I think Fred wouldn't have survived, and I always say that if it was hard enough to beat them with 11 men, but if we'd have had 10, it might have not been possible. And we all felt tremendously sorry for Fred, because let's face it, not many people get to play at Wembley, and I was I was very, very fortunate as it happened. You know, we went 2-0 down just after the second half, and I'm thinking we're going to have to come back next season and try and take it, because it starts going through your mind. Well, not many, you know, at the time that I don't think there were many that came back from 2-0 down. Certainly at Wembley. I know that there had been the earlier one of Matthews' final. They were 3-1 down, weren't they? I think, and came back 4-3. But they were few and far between. And but then, of course, Mick came on the scene. He cracked 2 in, and I managed to get the last one, which was tremendous for me, because I've dined out on it a few times since then, of course. But I just thank the Lord that I managed to put it away, because if I hadn't, I wouldn't be sat here now, I don't think.
Well, can you remember, I mean, I'm sure you can, the build-up to the goal?
Yeah, it was, I'd wandered, I was playing left wing, but I'd wandered over, as we were allowed to. You could wander, you weren't stuck on the wing. And I'd wandered over into the inside right position. Colin Harvey hit a ball out of defence. I don't know what it meant it for me, it certainly didn't come to me, but it went to Jerry Young, who was the Sheffield Wednesday sweeper, just inside their half. And he went to trap it, and I just ran towards him thinking he might bobble off his leg or something, and I might get a tackle in and win the ball. But it went under his foot, and that left me running clear, because I was running towards him. He's facing the wrong way, I was away, you know, and I had the ball under control fairly quickly, and was racing towards their goal. I knew that he was the last man, there was nobody near me, so I had time to gather myself, and I looked up, and Springer hadn't come out very far, so I thought, well, I can't try and lift it over him, chip him. I've always said that if I'd have been Alex Young, I'd have taken the ball up to him, you know, and done a couple of tricks and knocked it in, probably nutmegged him, you know, shoved it through his legs or something. But that was if I'd have done that, he'd have taken it off me probably. So I weighed up the angles as I approached. Goalkeepers can't cover the whole goal, of course, but Ron Springer was he was an England goalkeeper, I think, at the time, very good goalkeeper. He had his angles right, but there's always a space, you know, in the fog, and that's where I fired it at, and fortunately I hit it true, and it flew in, and I think he got his fingertips to it, but he didn't deflect it. I hit it well enough, and it went in about 2 or 3 feet, I think, off the ground, if I remember, and just inside the post, and that was it. But it wasn't the end of the game, of course, because we're 3-2 up, and I think there was still about a quarter of an hour to go.
What goes through your mind that when it hits the net? I mean, what?
Relief.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right, Phil. You know, you just relieve that, you know, it's in, because as I say, if you can imagine people, what they'd been saying if I'd have hit it and straight at him or something, and he'd have blocked it and knocked it away, you know, and we'd have lost, say.
Is the fact that you know, there are thousands of pairs of eyes watching you, and you know they're there. Does the crowd have that effect? I mean, can you switch off when you think in that instant you were in there? It was a case of it was me or him. I had to score, he had to save it.
Yeah.
Can you sort of switch the crowd off in your mind and think this is just a personal thing between two people now?
Well, you don't even, you're just concentrating completely on your job, which is to put the ball in the net. You're not aware of the crowd at all, Jerry. You could be playing on a park on a Sunday, quite honestly, in the same situation, you know. But no, it was you complete concentration on what you had to do, which was to not lose control of the ball and strike it well and put it in the right place. And of course, that's what I did. And you know, people have often said to me, "Why, you were cool there," but you see, might have been, but that's what we were trained for. You know, you were doing that in practice anyway, most of the time. You know, one-on-one with goalkeeper. Not an easy situation. I'm not being boastful at all, but it isn't the most easy chance you'll ever get, you know, one-on-one with a keeper. But I always fancied my chances if I were in that situation, because I could strike a ball quite well and accurately.
I mean, and so I presume a wall of noise hit you, did it? The crowd, the Everton crowd, just the noise of the crowd hit you? Or?
Yeah, well, it must have, you're not even aware of that.
So you're just in a world completely of your own?
Yeah, you're not aware of no. It's not until probably the next day when you're on the bus, you get off the train at Allerton and you're coming through Liverpool that you realise, because then you see the fans and, you know, there's like 100,000 of them more, you know, lining the streets, fantastic. And that's when you realise that you've won the FA Cup, you know.
Well, I mean, from a fan point of view, I mean, I remember it very, very well, and I can see the goals. I'm talking to you now, but I know what my reaction and the fans' reaction were. But from you and the rest of the players, I mean, what was the atmosphere like when the final whistle went? I mean, after you came off the pitch, the dressing room, you know, what was the sort of manager's comments?
Jubilation.
Was there any comments from the manager? Was he?
Well, you know, I mean, Harry was. He was very jubilant, of course. He wouldn't let go of the cup, I don't think, Harry. But somebody remarked on that later, one of the lads, one of the players, Harry wouldn't let go of the cup, and I don't think he did very often. But, so he was delighted, of course. Oh yeah, we were delighted. I mean, you know, as I said before, Jerry, you're 2 down, and you know, you're thinking, blimey, it's going to have to be next year.
What was it like for you days after when you came back? I mean, obviously you had to go out and you had to do things that normal people, you know, shopping and going out with your wife and all that. What was the sort of, was there any sort of massive reaction to that when you were seeing? Or?
Well, everybody was, you know, shaking your hand and well done, you know. Yeah, it was very nice, you know, it was good.
Were you the sort of person that would go to your head, or were you sort of level-headed, or?
Well, I wouldn't like to say it went to my head. No, I think I was happy about it, and I think, you know, I was very, very fortunate to be put in that position and to finish it the way I did, and it was part of life, you know. I mean. It was just one of those things that happened, and it's now a nice memory, you know.
Did you get to keep your shirt from the game? Or?
I did, yes, yeah. But I gave that to auction at a function about 6 or 7 years ago, and it was for the Rocking Horse Appeal, Alderhay Children's Hospital. And it was auctioned, and it raised £2,300. Chap paid for it, which I thought was tremendous, you know, and that went to the poor children at Alderhay Hospital, which I was delighted about.
And that was an extremely generous gesture from you.
Well,
you know.
I mean, it was the least I could do, you know. I mean, I was delighted it made that money for them.
Now, after winning the cup, I mean, you were saying, was it still at the start of the next season, you were still had to sign another contract? Was it still the 1-year contract?
No, not necessarily. You might have been on a 2-year contract then, depending on who you were. Being a local lad, it wouldn't be any longer than 2 years, you know, because you still had that thing. It was, if you paid a lot of money for somebody, they seemed to get more wages and better houses, if you like, accommodation. I was still, don't forget, I wasn't worried about a clubhouse then, because I bought my own, you know, which I'm still in.
And was Harry Catterick the sort of chap that would say, I don't care if you've won the cup, you know, you're out the side, or was he well, you've won the cup. You still was he that sort of manager? You know.
Yeah, very much so, because Harry Catterick had a history of if you won something, he'd break the team up. Yeah, if you look back over the years when Everton, when he was manager, and he was a very successful manager, but you have a look at the teams, how they changed after they won something. You know, they broke our team up. I left the following year. I think, I forget who they were, the players certainly from that team left before me. You know, I mean, so he had this thing about, I don't know whether he had a mindset of that if you won something that you would settle for that. You know, and I think that was wrong, because once you taste success like that, you know, you're looking for more. Because we, you know, don't forget, we won the league in 62, 63. That was Harry Catterick, wasn't it, I think? Was he manager then?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, the team gradually changed. I mean, that team had Roy Vernon in, didn't it?
Billy Bingham.
Billy Bingham. Well, they went in the team in 66, you know. I mean, I know Billy Bingham was getting older then, but they made an awful lot of changes, you know. After a team won something, he would not necessarily get rid of them all, but some, you know, 3 or 4, maybe more, I don't know. But he did it. He certainly did it after we won the league, and then after we won the cup, and then I think he did it again because he was manager when. He was manager when we won the league again in 70, wasn't he? Yeah. I think he did it again.
What sort of character? I mean, he had a reputation of being rather a strange character. I mean, he was known to be very subtle on his transfers, wasn't he? He was.
Well, he was stealthy over his transfers, wasn't he? He'd disappear from functions, and he'd be shooting up to Scotland and signing players, and good players too. Bought a lot of good players from Scotland, which you know, the Scottish players had something about them, and they were good, and they were fierce fighters, you know, good for the team. I thought we had some great Scottish players, you know, but he kept his cards very close to his chest, Harry. You never knew what he was thinking. You certainly knew if the press were going to be around at Belfield, because he'd turn up he'd come out and in a brand new tracksuit and you know, not a mark on it, and you say, hello, the cameras are going to be here today, boys. We all knew.
Oh, we were chatting recently to Alex Young, and he has obviously very happy memories about that day and one thing. I mean, you know, what's in your eye? What sort of player was he?
Tremendous skill. Alex Young was. I mean, he is worshipped by the fans here. You know, so again, they have this thing. They love centre forwards, don't they? Yeah. And they've had some great centre forwards in the past. Alex was one. You know, his skill rate was superb, you know. I mean, very, very clever, and good head of a ball for his size. You know, his timing. I mean, as I said earlier, in the final, if I'd have had his skill, I'd have taken it up to the keeper and you know, nutmegged him or something. But he, you know, he had this thing with his feet, didn't he? Tenderfoot. You know what I mean? Yes. Blisters, very, very bad blisters all the time. But he was a delightful player to play football with and also to watch. You know, I mean, certainly his skill was tremendous.
What I mean, you know, you were saying before about Mike Trebilcock, who came on and scored the 2 goals. I mean, he was an unsung hero because obviously we don't hear anything about Mike now with him being so far away. But what was the reaction when he came on? I mean, what sort of was he? Did he have a lot of skill in your? You know, what was? Oh yeah,
he was in training. You knew Mike was a good goal scorer. he could always score goals, you know. He's fairly accurate in his shooting. Quite sharp, quick. But it's like the old saying, isn't it? I came, I saw, I conquered. He came on the scene quickly and disappeared off it just as quickly. But he did a wonderful job for Everton, didn't he? You know, and thank goodness he was there.
When did you get to? You were saying before the game. When did you actually? When you left on the Thursday, you didn't know the team. When were you actually told the team, and how was it announced to you? Were you told individually or as a group?
I think Fred was told individually that he was not playing. That was while it was at the hotel, I think. I forget how I don't know whether the rest of us were told the team then after Fred had been told that he wasn't playing. Of course, Mike Trebilco would have been told quietly that he was playing. I forget that invariably when we were at Goodison it was pinned up on the notice board very often, the team, or you'd see if your boots were out, you know, in the new place. Away from home, it was announced on the Friday generally, or sometimes on the Saturday, you know, travelling to the game.
Talking about travelling, I mean, in those days, I mean, I know they fly an awful lot these days, but did you mainly just coach to all away games?
Train in early days, Jerry, and then coach later, yeah. But train, you know, in the 50s, certainly, and always stayed at the Station Hotel, you know, which was right in the station. Newcastle, we'd stay overnight, you know, I mean, travel was different again, wasn't it, you know, I mean, London was, you know, maybe 5 hours on the train, so you'd stay overnight there. Night games, this was, you know, because you'd play night games still. Saturday you'd come straight back, but afternoon games. But that yeah, it was early days was train, and then the coach came into.
Did they have control of what you ate on the match day and what you drunk? I mean, did they say no, you can only have this? And
well, they did. When you you know, if you travelled and stayed overnight somewhere, you would, you'd be told what you could have. Lunch on a match day, you had a choice of, it was usually boiled chicken or a toast, I think it was. Or what was the other one? I always had boiled chicken anyway, so it was okay, but something light, you know, I mean, I think that was the general thing.
We didn't have any superstitions, I think, about, you know, putting a certain boot on first or anything like that, did you?
I don't think I did, Jerry. I can't remember having any superstitions. No, I've never been one for walking round a ladder. I'd walk under it, you know. I'm not bothered about that. No. So I don't think I did really. I mean, get out there and you make your own luck.
yeah, I mean, we're going back to your England. The one game you played for England, it was 65, West Germany?
Yes, that's right.
Was that Alf Ramsey?
Yes.
Yeah. What was he like as a manager?
He was very astute, Alf. He knew what he wanted, planned everything very well, knew the opposition down to a T, told you what your job was, what he wanted you to do, and if you didn't do it, you'd be out. You know, he didn't say that to you, but that's what happened. He was very good manager.
And how did you get? I mean, obviously you played well to get into the England side, but how did you find out that you were going to play for England?
Well, they send you. I played for England in the summer of '65, prior to the World Cup in '66, and he was trying to formulate a team then, and they had pre-season or end of season, if you like, tour, and it was to Yugoslavia, Sweden, and Germany. and you get a letter saying you've been selected to go on this. So not that you've been selected to play for England, but to go on the tour with an itinerary. And went to Yugoslavia, played them, didn't play. Went to Sweden, didn't play. And then in Nuremberg, I did play. I was selected to play, and I did all right. I thought, you know, I made the goal for Terry Payne. Got down the left wing, crossed it, and Terry Payne scored, and we won 1-0 in Nuremberg against Germany. So I thought I did all right. But and I was in the 40 the following year. Alf named 40 for the World Cup, a squad of 40, but it was going to be narrowed down to 22. And when it was narrowed down, I missed out, so nearly made it, you know. Would have been a great year, that, wouldn't it? Ray Wilson did it, you know. Yeah, we got 2 medals that year.
Was that the didn't Brian LeBone was nearly in that team, the World Cup, am I right to say?
Yeah, I think so. I think, I'm not sure whether Brian asked to be relieved of selection because he was getting married now. I would have thought that wouldn't have gone down very well with Alf Ramsey. You know, don't think they'd been too happy.
When you were coming towards the end of your Everton career, did you know in your mind that it was coming towards the end, or were you know, did you have any inkling, or that it was going to happen?
No, not really, Jerry. I found out later that when Howard Kendall came to Everton, I should have been... Preston wanted me as part of the deal, you know, but Harry wouldn't let me go. Now, then, Howard joined us... When did Howard join us? Was it 67 or 66? Bawley joined us in 66, didn't he, after the World Cup? And I think Howard, because I played in the same team as Howard, you know, so I was here when Howard came. But anyway, 67, September, Harry Catterick said to me, sent for me, and he said, Preston have made an offer for you, they'd like to talk to you. What do you want? We don't want you to go. You say, now that's a load of flannel, because if they didn't want you to go, they do what they did before when Howard came. Say, no, he's not available. But, you know, it's up to you, we don't want you to go. And, well, of course, your writing's on the wall, that was the first inkling. So I said, oh, no, I'll talk to them. Because if they say that to you, you know, you're on your way out anyway. And that's the first sign. It was one of those things, you know, your career comes to an end at one club and you go to another. But it's not the same, because your heart's still at the club, you know, you join first.
So you have to be, basically when you're playing for Preston, you just have to be totally professional about it. You know.
Oh yeah. Well, let's be fair, Phil. You know, they're paying your wages, and it'd be very remiss of you, wouldn't it, to not be fully concentrated on playing your best for them. You know, trying your best.
Did you play against Everton when you played for Preston?
No, played against Everton reserves for Preston reserves, just the once. But no, Preston were second division, Everton were first.
How long were you at Preston?
About 2 years, that's all.
And was there a total difference between the football in the second division and the first division?
Yes.
In those,
Yeah. Oh yeah, tremendous. Lot slower, not as skillful. But you know, there were some good teams. I mean, and it was probably a little bit harder, you know. I mean, in that you got more kicks in the second division. Maybe you're slowing down, I don't know.
I mean, I was going to ask you, I mean, who was the toughest defender you played against? Who was the fella that you thought, I can't get past this chap? You know, or was there no one like that you could always believe you would do?
Oh no, there was never anybody else that thought that, I can't get past this fella. No, but Jimmy Armfield was a good full-back. He was, he was England full-back. He was quick, and his positional sense was good. He could read the game pretty well, so he was a very good player to play against. There were others, you know, I mean, but he was probably one of the best.
Who was the best player you think you played alongside for Everton?
I always thought Bobby Collins wasn't the nicest person, Bobby, you know, he could be a bit vicious, you know, but he was a hell of a player, I thought, yeah, but could be quite nasty on the field, you know, he's only a tiny little fellow, but
yeah.
he looked after himself.
He was a pocket battleship, wasn't he, as described, as a member, small but with the shot of a cannonball.
Well, it wasn't just a shot, he'd kick anybody as well, you know, he's a bit naughty, but could look after himself.
Tell us also about, I mean, you're big pals with Dennis Stevens nowadays.
Yes.
I mean, what was he like as a player?
Good player, Dennis. Hard, but good footballer. Harry brought him in from Bolton to stiffen the side up, because Dennis, there was never a lost cause with Dennis, you know, he would battle to the end. Very, very physically, very strong, but also good footballer as well. And I've remained friends with Dennis now, yeah.
I mean, do you play against Dennis as well when you were playing? Or was he?
I think probably I played against Bolton when he was there, but of course never came across him because he was an inside forward.
Yeah, different pass.
Yeah. He might have tackled me a few times. I don't remember it, but I should do, because Dennis was a good tackler. You know?
You would have known about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you went from Preston, then you went on to Wigan, was it?
Yes.
And that was even a bigger sort of drop down, was it?
Well, it was, because Wigan were non-league. They were in the Northern Premier League. They were always been trying to get into the league, but of course it was a closed shop. They had to be voted in, and that's like Turkey voting for Christmas, isn't it? You know, I mean, they ain't going to vote themselves out, these people, and eventually they did get in, and look where they are now. They've done exceptionally well, but they always had that potential, I thought, Wigan. I had a couple of good years there. Unfortunately, I got a bad groin injury, and that finished me off.
Did you ever contemplate management as?
No, I didn't really, Jay. I qualified as a coach when I was at Everton under Les Shannon. He was a staff coach, and I did my preliminary badge, which allowed you to coach, but I never took it on. I should have done, but I could have been all right. I think I felt as though I had a lot to give back to the game, but it's just one of those things, you know. I mean, sometimes life's planned for you. I think didn't happen.
And so, what did you go into then when you left?
Well, I had a shop and post office at Old Drone in Aintree there. Did that for about 5 years, lost a lot of money, and got out of it.
So that was with your money that you saved from playing your football, yeah?
Basically, yeah.
So, and then you led. What did you do after that? Went
into insurance a couple of years, double glazing a couple of years. Well, for a number of years, about 14 years, and then I worked for a company in Rochdale area, Whitworth. Very good company, family-run concern called Neolith, and that was high-pressure water jetting pumps. You know, the ones that clean drains and that, and also chemicals for cleaning buildings. It was tied up, you know, with small pressure pumps. And I worked for them until retirement for nearly 20 years.
And when you left football, left Wigan, was that the last time you played football? Did you play on the park? Or
no, I played benefit game, you know, not benefit, well, a couple of benefit games, but charity games, yeah. Until eventually even they became a bit hard, and you have to call it a day then.
Yeah, so footballers don't daddy just fade away.
Well, absolutely,
but yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, Derek, I think it's been fascinating listening to you, and I think we can finish by saying that you'll always remain, in Everton's eyes, a hero of ours. Not just because of 66, but your dedication to the club, I think, is always appreciated, because that's the sort of club we are, as you know. Mm-hmm. And it's been fascinating, and thanks very much indeed for all your comments, and I'm sure people in the future will be very interested to know that their hero is a hero.